scientist?
No.
What have you studied?
Huh?
What have you studied?
Audio production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Do you know, like, with sound waves propagate in a straight line? Is that how you understand it? Sound waves propagate
I
in
mean,
a
they
straight
bounce
line.
off anything, but
They can bounce off stuff.
Yeah.
If you interfere with something, it will anything bounce
Yeah.
off something. But essentially, it's kind of moving in a straight line.
Yeah.
We say the same is true with our radio waves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're traveling in a straight line. And when Marconi was able to fire a radio signal across the Atlantic, they said it was because he was bouncing it off something on the, in the sky.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't make sense because I understand that it can bounce, but it needs to be something physical that's going to bounce it.
Yeah.
I can't bounce it off a gas.
Okay.
So we think that it's line of sight, that all of these
Yeah.
things are firing line of sight, and if you've got a radio tower at 100 meters above sea level in New York, you can see it from London, that radio signal, because it's line of sight.
Okay.
The American military uses something called the railgun, which is a Mark 15, like a magnetic weapon that they fire 100 miles.
Yeah.
Line of sight, with a laser pointing on another ship, they can shoot a target at 100 miles straight over the water.
Yeah.
So we say that there's no curvature over water. We understand that water is level in any body that we can measure. So on that basis, with the Earth being 70% water, we're saying, where's the curvature?
There? Yeah.
You know.
I'll be honest with you, I don't know much about railguns. There's a YouTube car called what was it? Something railgun, I don't know. But that's about as much about railguns I know.
Okay. Well, I mean, it is.
No, it is.
It is their. I mean, it is their best kind of weapon. It fires a sabot, but I mean, it doesn't really matter so much as that. It's just simply that the gunner can see the ship, because obviously they're both at sea level. They're both ships, right? And it doesn't matter if he's 10 miles, 50 miles, or even 100 miles.
Yeah.
There's still no bulging water that's interfering with that. But there's a formula given to us by the globe heads who say that there's got to be a certain amount, and it's hundreds of feet, if not thousands of feet, by the time you get to 100 miles of bending ball.
Yeah. Okay.
So you shouldn't be able to see the image of the ship cannot come back over the ball. It has to be line of sight. For them to see it.
Okay. Fair enough.
So that's where we are with like our oceans. I mean, there's a lake in Russia called Gilikol, and it freezes over once a year, and they turn it into an ice rink. It's 300 miles long, perfectly level for 300 miles. So we know that bodies of water act the same, and that I can test at home. I could put like five jugs or different bottles on stairs as I go down my staircase, and each of those bottles of water or containers of water will rest parallel to every other body of water. So if I turn that staircase into your mountain, and now I've got lakes now coming down the mountain, each of those bodies are parallel and eventually horizontal when they get to the sea.
Okay.
So they all have the same level, and I say to people, if we're on the west coast of England now, or Britain now, and we travel over Snowdonia and into England and over to the east coast, we're going to have gone up to 2,000 feet or 3,000 feet, whatever, and then come back down 3,000 feet and get to zero again on the east coast. It's the same zero. We're not walking up or down any other thing other than I lose sea level as I go up, and I get back to sea level as I get to the east coast. And I would have gone up and down equally. Like
I'm just going to go stand over this side because I can't actually see any more.
That's right. I do sun gazing. So
there you go.
So obviously, if I took the Britain and made it America, the same would apply. I'm obviously going to go up to about 3,000 meters at the highest point, maybe at some point, and then come down, and then eventually I get back to the sea level. So at what point are we demonstrating or measuring any sort of curving or ballness to our water ball that we claim we live on?
I'll be honest with you, the only thing I know about is, have you seen the Flat Earth documentary on Netflix? I know it's obviously a bit of
I do. Funny enough, the guy who's in that, Mark Sargent, I met him right here 3 or 4 years ago.
What, in Cardiff?
Yeah.
Oh, mad figures.
Yeah, because he came over we were doing a few things, and we had a Flat Earth conference here, and he came to do some activism.
In the
Cardiff,
UK?
We've had a few actually in the last few years. But Mark Sargent, I met him. Yeah, that guy. Anyway, so that was
just the thing at the end of the film, I guess.
The ring gyro.
No, not that one. The one where they have the boards and they're shooting the laser across, and then it should hit this point, and then it doesn't hit the point.
Yeah.
What's
For me, that's just unfortunately scatter. The laser does start to scatter over distance. And that's why you have to spend a lot of money on a laser just to get it to fire 2 miles without it beginning to scatter. So that was, I think that killed. That didn't help that. Oh, there's another documentary that was more like a mainstream National Geographic one or something that tried to show. Oh, look, we can show that there's curvature here. A better experiment is really to take a 3 Mile lake or something like that and get a friend to stand on the other side and fire something 6 inches above the water. That shouldn't work because you've got 8 inches of curvature in the first mile 32 in the second mile and something more in the third, apparently. I don't agree with that maths, by the way, that they give us, but for me, if we're on a sphere, then that sphere is bending the same all the time. It doesn't have major flat spots. Other than I would agree that, our continental areas have got, Utah and places like that is super flat. So, once I believed in the ball, I suppose I would have accepted that, we've got some plateaus on our lands, but then once you get back to the water, it's got to conform to the almost perfectly spherical image that I have in my mind given from NASA. So when you have that, you've got to go, there's going to be the same amount of curve no matter where I happen to land, South Africa, South America, whatever, on an island in the Caribbean, whatever. It's going to be bending essentially the same amount wherever I look out. But of course we know that some of that's just a perspective thing, and when you look down, things get smaller and you're into more moisture and it's harder to see things and so on. But we can take a powerful telescope or camera and bring a ship back over the curvature. They say the ship's gone over 3 or 4 miles, but we can see it 10 miles, 15 miles. And it's like, whoa, there's no curve, it's still going over flat. And then when you fly over the Mediterranean or something like that, like I have done, then you just see on a clear day, you see ships on on a lake, almost like a mirror. And they're 50 miles away from you, 60 miles away from you, and they all look like they're on the same level.
Okay.
And that's how water works, is water levels. We're just inside a big lake. We don't know how the extremities work. The fall off the edge thing that everybody's programmed to say. No, I don't think that in nature. Nature demands that everything has a skin.
Okay. So what is the edge?
What would be the rind? So if you imagine that we were an orange, our universe was one orange. Our whole universe that we can observe.
I just want to say an orange is maybe a bad example.
Why?
Just round.
Yeah.
The universe is round.
Yeah.
The whole universe, not the planet.
No, well, where we stand is a plane. And it's an accretion disk in the center of 2 electromagnetic systems. So what we've got is essentially what I'm going to ask you to do is to cut the orange open at the equator.
Oh, okay.
Open it up. And when you see that little star pattern inside where the seeds are. If I magnify this up 1 non-million times or something like that, then those seeds are now continents. Okay. And that's where we would be, is that tiny bit in the middle. That's our Earth. And the expanse of the roof is looking into the top of the orange. The oceans are the densest, we live in a density and buoyancy environment, and water takes density, or this becomes dense than water at this level. Above that, it's just gaseous. So our fruit isn't as consistent as we would think of an orange being all the same amount of density all through the fruit. But in this case, we have a massive system in which the heaviest things have settled, the stones and the metals have settled, and the gases have risen, and the moistures, the liquids and so on have found their own place, oil, water, etc.
Okay.
And so, for me, that's, I kind of lost my thread there, but that kind of offers, that mimics what I believe, when we're looking out into our universe, we're looking into like a planetarium. And on the roof of that planetarium, which would be the pith of the orange, not necessarily the skin, because I don't make the pith is the white rind and stuff. That would be like the roof, the sodium layer that we see above us. And inside of that would be electrical activity, which we would recognize as stars. Now, if you imagine that I could separate the fruit from the seeds and the skin, and I could actually turn them like we think the sky is simply turning. If I could do that, then the segments of the orange would move over my head bit by bit, depending on where I happen to stand. And those 12 segments, or I would say 12, those segments of the orange would mimic, say, what we see as the zodiacal signs, and they've broken the clock into these 12 segments, you see. And our sky moves around us in this 360-degree turn. It's not a perfect it's not a perfect circle, it's an elliptical thing, just like they say in mainstream science that things are moving in an ellipsoid pattern. But it's that the roof is just simply part of the system. It's separate to the Earth. The Earth is like, if you cut a tomato through like that, you'll see those sort of, the segments of the tomato are very strong. And they look to me like what I would say is continents, and I can imagine being on that if I magnify my tomato up very big. It's got hardness, it's got moisture, it's got seeds for growth, and so nature is showing us that and we call our seeds. Nature is showing us that this is how I would do it. I would create an egg, I would create an apple, I would create an orange, and inside of that, all the soft stuff would happen. It wouldn't be on the skin. The fruit would not be on the skin.
I don't want to be I'm not trying to be a dick about it, but like both examples are round. So I feel like that's
but I'm saying it is round, but we're not walking on the outside of the orange, you see?
Okay.
The fruit can't be on the outside of the orange. Give me an example of one fruit that's on the outside of its skin. Or one anything that's on the outside of its skin.
I see what you're saying.
This would be the only example. This would be the only thing in all of nature that doesn't need a bark, a rind, a skin, a shell. And I say it needs a shell. I see it needs containment. We are. This is moisture. This is the wet part of the orange. If I rip the wet part open and then I take the pith off as well, the white bit, then that thing starts to dry and die very quickly.
Okay.
And so, if we had a vacuum of space and all of that, but we don't think that, it might be water, but whatever it is, whatever's outside of this would be devastating to the fruit.
Yeah.
And if we're the fruit of this earth, it would be devastating not to have an enclosure.
Okay. Fair enough, I suppose. I mean, I'm not a scientist. I don't know much about it. I'm not gonna.
You are a scientist, man. You're a thinking guy. You've got the ideas. The problem with science today is that they've left science to the theoretical elements that you and I do not have the capacity or the time or whatever to understand. Yeah. So when it comes to the science that I talk about, it's like, can you test that? Can we test something like that, or do we have to just suck our thumbs and say, we'll think it's that, we'll say it's that, it's possibly that. Whereas what I'm saying with water is that that's something you can go and test for yourself. You can take 5 bowls of water and say, shit, they're all level. You can take a balloon, to understand what gravity might be. If you can take a balloon, rub it on your arm or your hair or whatever, and get some static electricity and push it near water. It'll displace the water without touching without physically touching it. So we think we live in an electromagnetic world. Our moon doesn't do what they say it does in terms of attracting the tides and so on, although it might have some bearing on it. But you can test for yourself that moon is, by the way, moon is cold light. You can do a laser test for yourself on this.
It's
lots of people. It's a cold light.
As in
it emits a cold light rather than reflecting a warm light.
Okay.
So, and it's blue, the light is blue.
Yeah.
So you can go into the shade of the moonlight and find it's warmer, just behind the tree in the shade of the moonlight than directly in the moonlight. People do it with glasses of water where they put one in the light and one out of the light. And they'll find that the one in the light gets colder and with a magnifying glass even colder. So you can magnify the coolness of the moonlight. Okay. And the moon is a decaying light. The sun is a healing, drying light. So one is orange or red, and the other is blue. And they're opposite spectrums of the system. One is pH minus, one is 7 minus pH 7. Yeah. So that's how we think the lights work. We can test that. I'll give you one more thing. The moon rolls like this in the sky, and that's an observation you can make for yourself. Okay. It rolls like a coin. Yeah. And when you're in the southern hemisphere, it rolls counterclockwise. Whilst here, it's a clockwise roll. And that doesn't work on any model even a flat Earth model. I can't tell you. I think it's because it's like this tornado. We're in a torus system. Yeah. And torus systems have like a butthole and a mouth. They have that. Okay. And I think it's possibly something to do with this turning torus system that offers our lights, what we see as the moon and the sun. But I can't, I'm hypothesizing, obviously. I'm theorizing. We don't know for sure what these things are, or if we're ever meant to know. But I do say to people, I think that we are the product of whatever the source is. The source said, I want to make an Eden for myself to go and play and learn and grow. That's what I think.
So you think we were made?
We were but by your higher self. Not by... not by some other God or Jesus or whatever, but that you are Jesus and that you are the emanation.
I do get that quite a lot actually with the long hair and beard.
But this is even more. But everyone is that. Even a bald guy. So.
Josh, no, actually it's bald.
So for me is to say that none of us is more special or less special than anyone else, and that we have a higher self. I saw this on DMT in 2015. That there's a higher me. Yeah. And that higher me doesn't really mind what I do here. Yeah. But I know that we come from this sort of emanation of love, and I think that we've been tricked out of love into hating each other and separation and hardship and all this sort of stuff in order to either test us or to break us. Okay. And if the system does that for most people, I'm 54, most people get to my age, 60 years old, they're retiring, they're like finished and broken down by the system and what have you. And really... But for me, I think that if you know this and you can live your own life in a way that, I'm truly the master of this. I know that the system's going to try and pull at me, tug at me, mess with me, get me to fall in line and become a slave and, just be but there's much more for you to have. And I think this is meant to be a beautiful, divine, joyous world for us to have, like freedom of these guys. We talk about also some of the stuff like how the finance system has been designed to rob our natural wealth, how the government has tricked us into consenting to giving away far much more of our authority than we should. Yeah. All these sorts of things kind of tie into that and go, whoa, they're lying about everything. For me, I don't have to worry with religion. Yeah. Because I know that religion is all part of the same organization that's been trying to steal the human consciousness or the human story or the divine thing, trying to take it, control it, usurp it, I don't know. To do something to it over the last centuries is what we can tell, there's thousands of years.
Sorry to jump back. You said about there's a system.
Yeah.
What is the system? So you said about the system taking away our love and our self. What is?
I think there is a controlling hand. You know, like Dorothy in the Yellow Brick Road. There's a man behind the curtain.
Yeah.
You know who that man is, or if it's even a man. That's a debate because we don't know.
Yeah.
There are secret societies that are very influential.
Yeah.
There are royal houses that are untouchable.
Yeah.
There are states like the Vatican, which is a country within a country.
Yeah.
London, country within a country.
Yeah.
Washington D.C., a country within a country. And we believe that these three are the banking, religious, and military elements of a control system, and that together they work. And I think with us finding the flat Earth, it means that the space agencies are all in on it.
Yeah.
Russian, Chinese, Japanese. Once you get high enough into the G8 or into that club, then you get given some secrets, and that is you can have a space agency, but it's a bit of it's a con.
Yeah.
And so that means that there is a controlling hand. And if you weren't sure about that, then 2020 was a great example of where all of a sudden countries that don't even like each other all did exactly the same thing on almost the same day.
Yeah.
For something that a skeptical man would say, you know what? My neighbor, he's shutting his business down. I'm not going to shut mine down. I don't think I've got anywhere near the risk to me, and I'd much rather just take his business with him while he shuts down. He's soft.
Yeah.
Imagine you've got 10,000 staff, and you 3 of them fall unusually ill. You're going to shut the whole company? 3 out of 10,000.
Yeah.
I'd have to be very sure that I was going to let my competitor in the door by going, I'll close for 3. If it was 35, 300, definitely. But 3, and that was really out of 10,000, maybe as bad as it got.
Okay.
South Africa had the same death rate as the year before.
Okay.
So the Event 201 was a worldwide World Economic Forum funded event in October.
What was it called?
Event 201.
Event 201. Okay. Yes.
And it's still on YouTube. You can see them running through the drill of what they would do in a coronavirus outbreak. Yeah. And every country.
And they
in the world,
explicitly said coronavirus.
6 months before.
Wow. Yeah.
There was a coronavirus outbreak in 1968 in this country.
Yeah.
But coronavirus was always known as flu.
Yeah.
Actually, and anyway, so they have this 6 months before they lock us down.
Yeah.
They have this planning meeting to what we would do in the world and all countries in the world participated in that week in the same planning event. Here's the handbook. This is what you'll do. This is what you'll say. This is what you'll tell your people. They all agreed, all of that, and bang, 6 months later they pull out the playbook, right? And they do that. So someone was able to pull the trigger that made 200 countries do exactly the same thing.
Yeah.
That seems to me like almost like what's the word I'm looking for? A franchise. Okay. You can do some of your own stuff in your own franchise, but if the franchise decides we're changing colors, then you're changing colors. And you're going to rebrand your shop from tomorrow because that's what we told you. You're the franchise holder, not the owner.
Are there any rogues in that sort of franchise? Because I know this is a bad example, but when I was in America with my mates, there's a Dairy Queen in Moorhead, Minnesota, and they are essentially their own Dairy Queen. And they were set up before the rest of the other Dairy Queens, so they can make their own menu and they make crazy ice creams and shit. But is there anywhere like that on Earth, in like the global Tanzania? What do they do?
When they finally came out with the test, lots of people have been put down as corona. Then we got a pandemic with corona, but they didn't even have a test for it. So and then even when there was a test, we're like, our pie tests are positive, but I'm fine, Anyway, so he tested a paw and a goat. Yeah. Guess what? Yeah. They were positive for corona. Okay. And he went on national TV and said that. Had a heart attack 6 months later.
So I did.
He was replaced by a woman who loves corona, by the way, after his heart attack. Yeah. Took his life.
Really?
So so he was a rogue from the thing, Tanzania. Some say that that Gaddafi was also going rogue. He was in the club, and then he decided to do too much of his own thing, and he had to be taken out. And that whole thing happened, Benghazi, Hillary Clinton, all of that stuff. Look into that and you go, they were also making it happen, because it's very easy for me. If I've got all the money, I can buy some people in your neighborhood to go and agitate and irritate you until you do something about it. And it's when you do something about it, now I'm able to kind of respond to that. Right? And that's how world affairs are conducted. I was in a battle in 1987 in tank battles in Angola, and my battles were being staged as well. That was Cold War stuff.
What do you mean staged?
The Americans and the Russians, Angolans, Cubans, and South Africans.
Where are you from?
I was in South Africa at the time.
Okay,
we had to do 2 years national service.
Yeah. Okay.
And so there was a guy, after I wrote my book about it, a guy came to me and said...
what's your book?
It's called Battle on the Lomba.
Yeah, go on, so I'm going to write that down.
Battle on the Lomba. 1987.
I'm sorry, let me just type it down. Can you
it's South African Defence Force's biggest single battle victory.
Sorry, Battle of the...
Battle on the...
on the...
And it's L-O-M-B-A.
B-A. L-O-N-B-A.
No, L-O-M. Mother. B.A.
Cool.
1987. And it's a crew commander's account, as it was. Of my time. Anyway, the point is that someone comes to me and says, by the way, your battles were being stage managed from a hotel in Luanda by the Americans and the Russians and so on. And I, at the time, I didn't really think too much about it. But years later, I was like, you know what? That's starting to kind of add up to me because some things happened during the course of our big battles that made me think, why are we not doing this? For example, one day we rolled over a brigade, which is 2,000 men, 3 squadrons of tanks. We roll over them and destroy them completely, militarily, it's a matter of fact. And we're like, okay, we're ready to go. There's another 3 brigades near us in theatre around this river, and we just want to start fighting them all, right? We're much smaller. We're at least 3 times smaller than the one we destroyed, but we just want to take them all on now. Our commanders made us stand down for 5 days. 5 days. They're fleeing back towards this city called Quito Carnaval. They're fleeing, and we're like, let's get going. Eventually, we have a few battles on the way up to Quito Carnaval, but they make it back to Quito Carnaval, and we engage a siege that lasts for 6 months. My national service finishes as the siege starts, so I didn't see this through. But Nelson Mandela comes to power years later and said the end of apartheid was that siege that I was party to. So, and I know for sure that the South African Defence Force was so much more powerful than the Angolan Defence Force. It was, although they had, the Angolans had a lot of new Russian equipment. We were bombed by MiGs 21s. They had a lot of good stuff. The rocket launcher, the URLs, and things like that. They didn't have the training that we had, so we knew we were a lot stronger. But things that happened to me in my experience were like, no. And of course, no one knows the CIA were on the ground there. The CIA were there. We saw them. Pilots have told me we couldn't land while their plane was on the floor. And all that sort of stuff. So now we live in a world that is very deeply controlled. And the Russia v. America narrative, there are a lot of people who say, I don't believe in the moon landings. I say, but that was only because to keep the we're better than Russia story.
That's a fair argument. I'm not going to argue with that.
I used to say the same thing. But again, that's more dialectic. That's more like, it's just in the same way as they did it with Putin over the last 3 years, 5 years. It's 10, 15 years ago, he was a cool guy. Now he's like such a bad guy. So we live in a world that tries to pull you out of yourself, and find things, whether it's politics or football or whatever. They try to find things to pull you out of yourself and give away your energy to Ronaldo or Boris Johnson or what's that woman, the young lady. Oh gosh, Greta Thunberg. How dare you? See, for me, one of the reasons I like to talk about this subject is because you are not meant to feel guilty about being here. You are not meant to feel, you and humankind, I don't mean you personally, but we're not meant to feel guilt. Religion wants you to come here as a sinner, and the modern Greta Thunberg wants to come here as a wasteful eater, disgusting, despicable, user and spoiler of this earth. When in fact this earth was designed for you to come. It's like me taking you to Disneyland and saying, no, you can't go on those big rides.
I would never go to Disneyland.
But you can't go on those big rides. They were made for you to go on, so you should be like, if it's appropriate, go on the ride, go and have fun, go and enjoy yourself. And then you'll come off after 10 times and go, I've done it, thanks very much, but it should be up to you to decide when it's time to end the ride. But the ride was set up for you, not for me to stand at the head of the ride and say, now you're allowed, it's going to cost you $50 as well, by the way. Oh, now you've been on there, I saw you spitting while you were on the ride, that's going to cost you another $50, or you got out of your seat. Virgin Atlantic barred me for life. I flew from South Africa recently and they barred me for life because I wasn't going along with all their rules. Now we live in a world where I wasn't willing to wear the nappy.
Oh, it's okay,
the female panty liner on my face. No, I'm not going to do it.
Okay.
And because South Africa was still wearing the mask, England wasn't. But they said until we open the doors at Heathrow, you've got to keep your mask on.
Do you know Megabus? Do you use Megabus?
No.
So Megabus, if you get a Megabus from Cardiff a few months ago, you have to wear a mask. But if you cross the bridge into England, which is less than an hour away, you can take your mask off when you cross the bridge.
That's so stupid.
It's ridiculous.
You see?
No, serious. For real, man.
And people have given away so much of their own authority and in thinking as like, really, you really think that makes a difference? And as I say to people, man, if you've ever farted in a lift, the smell is in the lift in seconds, like the whole lift, and that comes through your trousers and your underwear and everything. What? Going to stop any breath.
That's fair.
So but people don't think about that, and we've given away so much power. And when they brought in taxes, for example, income taxes, it was like to pay for the war. Here we are, like 80 years, 100 years later, still paying through the nose. In fact, the taxes are much higher now. And this is again about putting you under more and more pressure, giving you less and less freedom, and so on. So no, this is about freeing your own journey rather than being caught up in the bullshit that this system wants to keep you paying attention to their news, giving your authority to Brian Cox or to other people who somehow smarter than you, which they're not.
Yeah.
I can assure you, you can work all of this stuff out for yourself.
Yeah. That's it.
And I was, as I say, I was 47 and still pretty much as brainwashed as everyone else. So it's only been 7 years that I was like, shit, I didn't know anything, and I have to start again.
Was there a contributing factor like 7 years ago that made you think?
No, it goes a little bit further back than me, because for me, my mother died 10 or so years ago, and it was her death that started me looking back at my military time, because I hadn't 25 years, I hadn't touched it.
Yeah.
So I started looking back at that, and then from that, people go, shit, you got some crazy stories. Can you write a book for us?
Yeah.
I write a book, and then from that, I start thinking, okay, someone gave me some money, I can write another book, and I will look into religion. Why religion's at war with each other. So I started researching deeply into religion. I become more strongly atheistic, and then I find out 9/11 wasn't done by the Muslims, and you know that, right?
Well, I don't. I mean, I know in the same way that you say you know. I mean, like we don't know. We do you know what I mean?
It definitely wasn't a song.
No, I'm not saying it is, but I'm saying like we can't know because I wasn't in the room. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Okay. So where I'm at, which would be hard maybe to reach, is that we don't think there were actually planes hit the building.
That's fair. Yeah. Okay.
So if that's the case, then the whole thing is a theatre.
Yeah.
And maybe very few people, if anyone, died on the day. But that's another part of it. So for me, it was that, and end of 2014, I'm starting to tear my friendships apart by with people going, look. And then I did DMT in 2015.
Yeah.
And that was, for me as an atheist, was a game changer.
Okay.
Because I went in there as a hardcore atheist, and 7 minutes later I was not.
So you're not an atheist?
No.
What would you say you're...
I know that there's a higher self here, and I know that higher self is connected to something else.
Yeah.
A God. My first words when I came out of it, and the DMT is pretty, I don't know if you've come across it, but it's pretty
I'm
intense.
aware of DMT, I haven't touched the stuff myself.
I couldn't move during the 6 or 7 minutes, barely, I couldn't move. But once it faded away, I was able to get up, and the first words I get up, I go, oh, it's true, there is a God. Yeah. That's my first words. And I had my dying mother in 2011, she wanted me to find God. I'm like, there is no God, mother. She's dying in front of me, and I'm not, that's how hardcore I was.
Yeah.
And then I got my ass kicked badly. I was 47. And so for me, I saw everything in the course of the 6 or 7 minutes. My eyes were like ripped open, like I could see beyond the skin. I could see the electromagnetics of everything. Yeah. And so everything, the trees, everything around me, the guy who was taking me through the trip, he was electric.
Where did you do it?
In Johannesburg. I was on a book tour. I ran into this old friend of mine. He's like, you got to try this. He's been living in the Himalayas 15 years. Yeah. You got to try this. Blah, blah, blah. And, I'd done, mushrooms and acid and stuff in the 80s and 90s and stuff like that. So, I'd have trips, but nothing ever prepared me for that level of ripping it open. It's like taking your TV and plugging in a skybox. All of a sudden, you've got 150 channels from, sport from countries you don't even know the name of. And this is how it was for me. I was seeing something that my mind had never been prepared for. Yeah. But it was like, what I could see was a higher self lying beneath me, an infinite being that doesn't die, more powerful than anything here, an atom bomb or whatever. More powerful than anything that's on Earth. Yeah. Now, I don't say that was God, but I was communicating with what I think is a higher self connected to eventually to God. And I suggest in an electromagnetic system, it might be like they say with the 7 heavens. Like the Russian doll, you get that small nested doll, right? The small doll is you, the biggest doll is God. But the doll above you is your higher self, and there's others to get to the top table, as it were. That's how I kind of understand it from my years of research, having come out of the atheistic, backwaters, and going, shit, but I don't buy a religion. Yeah. Religion is about choosing sides and saying it has to be this guy, that guy out there, rather than you. Yeah. As I say to people, like Jesus gave us this clue. He says, I'm the way, the truth, and the light. And God says, I've made you in my image. So when you're looking in the mirror tonight and you're looking at God and saying, I am the way, the truth, and life, and no one comes to God but through me, means that whatever God is, you'll only get through yourself.
Yeah, okay.
I can't sell you anything.
No,
I can't get you coming on a Sunday or a Monday or a Saturday or whatever, doing something. It really has to be about you finding yourself through your life experience, through improving your practices. I say to people, it's like the 12 disciplines are Jesus' 12 disciples. Discipline, disciple, same word.
Sorry, 12 disciplines?
Of the mind would be like, how your diligence, your honor, your integrity, your self-care, all of these sorts of things are the elements of maintaining the you, in a perfect balance. If you were running a building, for example, you'd have different elements of that building that would need attending to: plumbing, electrics, etc., etc. So cleaning, so feeding. These are the elements of you. And so what you see when people are broken often or hurting is that some of those spokes of the wheel are not full, are not strong, and so the wheel is running bumping. And every year, every month, every week, every day, it's bumping, and they're having problems every time. And that wheel will eventually break, because a wheel with short spokes is going to run, broken.
Okay.
So we're meant to be trying to find our own natural balance. And in this world, we have hot and cold. We have left and right. So I suggest it's a little bit like the Christian cross, where you've got the cold up in your head, the hot down in your trousers, the left and the right, of course, are your arms, and in the center of the Christian cross is your heart. And that's where I think we're meant to find ourselves in the heart, which is the green earth. Earth is an anagram for heart. And so we're here on earth with a heart, and I think we're meant to find that kind of natural, loving essence within ourselves before we leave. Some say we come back if we don't. I'm not saying it's a threat. I'm just saying maybe there is a sort of eternal story. It may take thousands, millennia to kind of play out. But eventually, I think our souls are meant to have a returning to a higher thing. We're told we're evolved and with the highest and so on. Well, in my world where everything's upside down, it's more likely we're in the dark ages now, and we've never been dumber.
You with Dr. Robert Schoch, I think his name is?
No.
He does like geology and some other business, but it's to do with Egypt, And he proved that there was water erosion on the Sphinx.
I get that,
But that was from a time when there shouldn't have been water there. But there's proven evidence that there was water there, do you know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, obviously we could be in dark ages, because there was people back then that made it, you know what I mean? Because they had to be there before then. They couldn't have been there when the water was there, you know what I'm saying?
And they estimate, 20,000-30,000, something like that?
I think it was over 30, So, it's 20,000 like the record we've been, so before that, you know what I mean?
So
before that.
So it kills the 6,000 year.
Who's in charge?
Sorry, mate?
Who's in charge?
Who's in charge?
Who's in charge?
Oh, well, no one particularly.
Because I got to get to my bin.
Oh, okay. We can help you with that. Yeah, my friend Jason will help you with that. He sort of put the banner up. Jason here with the blue
If I
shirt.
give him a key, can empty it as well. I'll leave it, mate.
All right, cheers, buddy.
Sorry,
so the question was?
Something to do with people, we're now in the dark ages.
Oh, yeah, and
research
so I want to offer you something, something you look up for yourself. And that is that firstly, when you go to Cathedral, and so on, beautiful buildings, immaculate building, so well built by people who we believe were.
Did you see Lincoln thing? Lincoln Cathedral.
Beautiful.
That was
the one without the spire as well, Lincoln.
Yeah, I can't remember. I went to uni there, but I've seen it. It's huge, crazy. Like, you think, how the fuck did they do that way back when? Do you know what I mean?
Liverpool, I was in there the other day. So I research a subject called mud flood. In fact, this guy over there with
called what?
Mud flood.
Mud flood.
Yeah.
Oh, like the
Tartaria.
Tartaria. Yeah, I'm familiar with Tartaria.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, this guy here, along with the blue shirt, and he's one of the gods of Tartaria. Actually, his name's Martin Lika. He has a channel called Flat Earth British.
Yeah.
Anyway, we've been looking at this for years, and I go around looking at old buildings that are under the mud. And this city is chock-a-block. I've just come out of Bath today, this morning, and that place is, there's so many buildings that are under mud, and there's windows and doors and shit that are under the road level,
Is there anything around here?
Yeah.
Where?
Yeah, I'll show you some. I can show you some quite easily. We might need to just walk off the main concourse, because this is all been altered.
What's with the newspapers?
You can have one. This is not for. This is just the.
I just love reading material, you know what I mean?
This is the light.
Go on, I'll just take the... Is it one?
They know about Tartaria.
I should have brought my books. He likes reading material.
Yeah. This guy, you wrote a book on Tartaria.
Oh, yeah?
A couple of books.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Madness.
Yeah.
It's a lot of work.
Tell him the name, because he'll look it up.
Go on,
Martin Litka.
Well, no, don't your book.
Flat Earth British. The Holy Grail of the Great Reset is my last book. Holy Grail of our Flat Earth was my first book.
Okay. Cool. I'll give it a check out.
Yeah, man. I think that you quite easily will find evidence. Which way?
Yes, we're going to head this way.
Well, briefly. I'm just going to show them some muddies. So the street levels all get. Are you going this way? Or? Okay, this tabernacle will probably give us some great evidence. You'll find that this building here will have a basement. Oh yeah, and we're told that that's all for cellaring and so on. But there are millions, hundreds of thousands of buildings like this that the cellar story doesn't apply. And the water problems that they get downstairs, guys, because they have no impervious barriers yet. When they build these, they have no way of stopping the water from getting in. So what they have to do with the modern ones now, they tank them. They have to put them in a bathtub essentially to stop them water ingress. So back in the day, no, that would make very little sense. And when you see how many things they have to alter, go and look at what's it called? Something Abbey. There was that TV program, Downton Abbey.
Oh yeah.
You go and look at.
I really don't want to watch that.
No, you don't really look at that. But if you go and pull off the floor plan for the building that they use, that's the set. The most impressive floor is in the basement.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's like, I I stayed in a stately home a few years ago in England, in Norfolk, called Letton Hall, and I was in the basement of that. It was like all bricked-in windows and stuff like that down under the ground.
Yeah.
So there's no, for me, and I haven't seen any great evidence of it here because all these shop fronts have been altered.
Yeah.
You know, and so you start to lose the original sort of thing. But what you'll notice, if you look out for it, you'll see it more and more, is that you'll see windows at street level.
Yeah, I mean, the windows there, street level.
No, I mean, sorry, what I mean is that the window will be cut in half, where you got half of the window here and the rest of it is down below. You'll see that all over, even around Buckingham Palace.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why would you create that? Because the water that goes in there, the dirt, and all that sort of stuff.
I mean, there's a terraced house, you see them all the time, but is that not just let light into the cellars? Because there's the whole there's like the grate. Say this is the window, you got a whole grate that comes out here.
Yeah.
I always assumed you just to let light down into the cellar, is it not?
Yeah, I mean that's what you would do if you were, say, digging it back out and wanting to let light in there. But to design it like that in the first place would mean that in order to build the whole building, you'd have to dig a big hole around that, retain all of that, then lay your bricks in, and then go back and fill the dirt back in against the wall, which really doesn't make much sense.
Okay.
So just go and look at this one. Think about this one some more. When you can see enough buildings, I've been into 50 cities and I've seen exactly the same thing. In places where there was no need for them to go to the extra effort of building downstairs. Because if you wanted a shed for your coal, you'd probably put it out in the back garden.
Yeah.
If you wanted a place for your staff to sleep, you probably wouldn't have to. You wouldn't do it where they were down in your basement, where now the only way to get to your back garden is through their quarters, through their apartment, because a lot of these houses don't have, if you're on the first floor, you've got no access to the garden. You've got to go through the basement to get to the garden. Which again, if I own this nice house and I've got staff in the garden, do I really want them to see me going into my garden every day?
I thought keep you humble.
Keep you humble, but it'll keep your coal wet as well, because it's all damp and you see how much green and moss and stuff is down there. So coal needs to stay dry. Wet coal just disintegrates. So no, that doesn't fit the bill. And to do it on so many scales, I've seen it in fancy houses, small houses, and so on. So we think, and in fact, if you go into Canterbury on a tour, they'll say, walk down 5 steps. Now you're in the 1700s. Another 5 steps. This is the street level in the 1500s. So they admit there that there's a cultural layer where people just threw dirt into the street until they gave up.
Sorry to interrupt. Do you want to can we keep walking and talking?
Yeah.
So So obviously what is the cause of this?
It's a good question, man. I like your mind. There's a lot of debate, was it a Noah's flood? Did everything sink and then the water come above us? And it left a sediment, like a beach, if you like, a mud on everything. And, oftentimes the mud is sort of equally deep, whether you're on a slope or on a flat, which is kind of strange because it's more like a snowfall then. A snowfall would be equally flat, equally deep, all the way down a hill. It doesn't tend to, it's very steep, it doesn't tend to avalanche. It'll just set at 1 foot all the way down, right? Well, that's what I see. I see 10 foot often of variation, of height variation. You can go into 2 stories, 3 stories into the floor in London, into the basement of some shops. And then I tell you there's buildings underneath here. In Liverpool, there's tours you can do on where there's villages or towns underneath the streets. Same with what was the other thing I was going to reference?
I mean, there was a lot in France, I believe, is it not?
Whoa! It's all over France. It's crazy, and it's the same architecture, And the crazy thing is that we see mimicked almost perfectly the same architecture in South Africa, South America, and so on. It's like, so how is it possible that people who didn't know each other were building almost identically?
I mean, there's the whole. I say generations as if that's long enough, but for thousands. I mean, like the whole building structure in what's it called? Well, pretty much all Asian world, like the Easter Island heads, there's those islands, and then they have similar building structures in ancient Egypt, but they didn't have any contacts. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. So we know that there's a hidden history, and we don't know, we aren't fully in the truth of it. Now I'll give you guys a great example right here. You see that?
Huh? Yeah, you got me. Yeah. That's fair.
And that you will see all over.
Yeah.
And then, of course, what they have to do is they have to create a new first floor, step up to it, and you see that all the time. It's like, wow, you've created such a headache for yourself, by doing it like that. So, this is obviously good. But if you went inside, you'd see the inside of that, and how they bricked them all in.
I'll try and get in it sometime,
Yeah, that's a first look. Now, once you go deeper into this, I've got a theory that they're actually, this what you see, the sandstone or the bathstone or whatever is a formed concrete. And not a carved stone, and that it's been done by.
Okay. Yeah.
It's been done by the same people across the country. When you see it decay, you realize it can't be what they. Well, it's probably not what they tell us. This is where I kind of look. When I look at this, it's like I know it's for me. It kind of I've looked at so many different buildings and so on.
I mean that slit goes quite deep, I suppose, and you got the mortar inside as well.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. Yeah, so for me, this is a cladding that comes later, even possibly as part of this. I think this was covered up later. This stone looks newer than perhaps this. But for me, this whole 6-inch cladding on the front of this building has been added on, and there's red brick behind it.
I mean, look at that.
What is called the Tartarian red brick behind it. Yeah, I mean, all of that wear and tear. It lends itself well, and actually, I meant to film it this morning in Bath, but the place next to where I was
coming from Bath today?
Yeah.
Fucking hell, busy man new.
Yeah. And tomorrow we're in Gloucester.
Oh, cool. Nice.
But the front door had these columns at it, and you could see, because they were coming away from the wall, you could see they were just like flat to the back, and it was just a sort of cast piece, you know? So this is what we think, is that something has happened to be able to cast these over in a very short space of time. I don't know how it was done, but the Tartarian red brick, which you would have come across, is beneath this. If you go down here into the basement and scratch beneath the surface, you'll find it's red brick.
Okay.
That's what we think. So oftentimes you'll see older buildings. Where's Liverpool? Where there was a wreck of a church.
Oh yes.
And on the outside,
is it?
I think so. Yeah. It looks like this from the outside, but because you can see on the inside is all this really poorly done red brick.
Yeah.
And it's like, so there's two different, I think, builders. I was in the Royal Arch yesterday as well, walked through that, and they say that all we did here was we put up the facade and we let everybody else build their own house at the back. It makes no sense.
Yeah.
It makes no sense. So I think those houses were there and then they facaded it afterwards.
That would make more sense.
That makes much more sense, right?
Yeah.
And there's all the issues of everybody having their own downstairs and how builders party walls and oh my gosh, 30 different builders on the same site. No.
Yeah, sounds a
and it looks. I went around the back and it looks a mess around the back. It looks fancy from the front, but it's just some children built it kind of thing.
Fair enough.
You know.
Yeah.
So no, this is a great one.
Yeah,
good fun.
I know. I didn't expect to see one like right in my face. Walk past this every day, but here we go. Yeah, you found me.
Yeah. Yeah, it's clear, and so much of this, and sometimes it'll be just about, the arch will be just above the window. But oftentimes, like the banks and so on, that building we walk past there, which is why I didn't bother stopping, is they've clad the bottom section there, so you can't actually see. You can't see what's below the skirt. You know, and so often with the newer buildings, the banks and so on, they'll put some kind of grill.
You look at the step there. Why is? I mean, the step disappears.
Yeah.
Silly. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Once you start looking at this, the buildings that are all over the place, the levels are all wrong. It's like, nah, come on, man, this was not done like they say.
Yeah. Well, anyway, man, it's been very informative. Nice one.
Cool.
Have a good day. We're gonna fuck off. What was your name again, sorry, bud?
Dave, and it's Trinity 4 on YouTube.
Trinity 4. You know what? Me and my housemate, we are big YouTubers, so we'll be nerding out on it. Cheers, bud.
Good luck, guys. There you go. That was a long conversation, but hopefully really sparked the juices for those young men and got them thinking.